Welcome to Song Story Short, where we learn from the musicians that make the music that we love.
We just had the chance to work with world-renowned musician Ollie Jackson. I hope that you'll benefit as much as we did from the talent and skill that he brought to the show.
Check it out, you're gonna like it. Welcome to our show. We're located here in Tacoma, Washington at the Decade Sound Studio, and we have an amazing guest, great performer, musician, percussionist, living legend, Ollie Jackson.
Yes,
Welcome
sir.
here.
Man, my pleasure. Thank you.
So I want to start with a little story how we met. That was a couple months ago. The Kareem Candy, amazing saxophone player, and Kareem Candy World Orchestra.
Yeah.
They brought you here for like little tour, and you tour with two guys. There was a little trio with Omar Avital and the George Colligan. And what cool part about it, I was like 4 or 5 feet away from see you playing, see your footwork, see your like every touch, every dynamic, the way how you control the instrument. It was like totally game changer. I never seen any performance that close. So my first question before we go to the educational system, I just want to like ask a little bit kind of technical questions about how you like control your instruments.
Well, thank you. The I think the very first thing that any one person that plays an instrument needs to take into consideration, it's all about sound. So most, when you're young, you want to play fast, you want to I want to do all this stuff. It's really about sound. Like when you speak, like each person, each human being, they have a unique sound. So it's ultimately about, am I creating the sound that I want to create? That's number one. And how do you get to that? First, generally repetition. If you play a wind instrument, like generally you work on long tones. It's like a baby doesn't just get up and start running a 100-meter sprint.
Yeah.
It's stages. So if you work on very simple things, let's say like if you're on a drum kit and just how you strike the drum. It's like if like a batter's swing or a footballer, striking the ball or passing the ball. So it's the motion, and to get the motion, and then all of the degrees of that motion. So very simple things. So the simple things, you build on the simple things, and then obviously they become, I guess they're layers, or then you can add other things. But I think the number one thing is really knowing what you want it to sound like. And you said something about Omer. And Omer, like in a group setting, it's about balance. So you could hear his sound partly because I'm not playing in a dynamic and a volume where his natural sound can be heard in a very natural context. So that the relationship between each instrument's sounds and how you play in a way that's complementary. So that comes with time and developing control of your sound, because ultimately it's just control of the sound. Let's say for drummers, if you strike a drum and you're using your wrist. Like I'm just doing it in a crude way because I don't have anything, but it's the fulcrum of the force of your wrist touching the instrument, and how much pace and weight in the contact of when the drumstick touches the skin, and where it touches the skin, and what part of the instrument and the drum is gonna make it sound like whatever it's gonna sound like. And the more times you do that in the different places of the drum, you understand how that instrument will sound when you play it in a certain space and with a certain amount of force. For bass, you pull the strings, there's a point where no matter how hard you pull the strings, the bass is only going to produce a certain amount of sound. So there's a sweet spot of when you pull the strings and the sound of the instrument where you do it efficiently. It will produce the maximum sound without like really pulling the string super hard. So it's understanding the physics of your instrument to create the sound you want. And I think that's primary, number one.
Yeah. So, and how nowadays? What's your idea of? You still practice, and how you working on new ideas right now? So, is any specific like ways, or so what would you recommend to people like when they, because you've been doing this for a lot of years, right? And new ideas coming up. As any kind of advice would you give to the people who like how to work on new ideas?
I think they're new ideas, but they're based on what you know already. So what's new to one person might not be new to someone else. So it's very interesting that. So new to me could not be new to someone maybe older than me that has done or knows more music. So that's delicate. Like if someone only knows, top 40 songs, and you play, giant steps, to them, that's new. So it's relative. I would say the more music you learn, the more you see that it's all connected. So what I say is new is when you can synthesize a lot of things and distill them into something that's very succinct and very clear. That's new. So I find myself getting more simple as I get older, not more complicated.
More simple.
Yeah, because you could say, like this interview, it's like, can I say just a few things that make it very clear for someone to understand? So if I'm speaking to an audience of 5-year-olds or an audience of PhDs, can they all understand me the same? So
Yeah, like it's like the same thing. Like it's one of you've done a lot of master classes and all of those stuff, and then it's a lot of audience who like advanced, or a lot of audience who just started. So what kind of advice would you give to then all of the different levels will understand? What the most important thing you think people missing nowadays?
the feeling,
Feeling?
the human thing, like we're looking at each other, we're talking, it's not scripted. I'm trying to read you the questions you want to ask. We have our production crew here. They're doing their thing, making sure everything is going. So we're just in the moment, right? But the most important thing are the moments.
Like
Listen.
moment itself.
The moment itself. So, the most important thing for people is the feeling of the moment. Sometimes you're afraid, and that's okay. Sometimes people are like, they get nervous. They're in front of people and they want to play, and they get choked up or they're nervous. It's like just being simple is beautiful.
Okay, it leads probably to the next question of the, if we talk for the more like a bigger like educational system. So my question basically is, if we talk about academic education, so what do you think they're missing? Where they can improve? What would you change there?
To humanity,
Humanity?
the lack of humanity. You don't learn, art is not about, okay, I learned a bunch of technical things. That's one aspect of it. Because you can play your scales, or you know a ton of etudes, or you transcribe Charlie Parker solos, or Jaco Pastorius, and I mean you've done that. It doesn't mean that you're a real artist. It means those are a part of it. But a real artist is someone that understands a very large amount of the breadth of whatever their discipline is, and they can synthesize themselves through that. They are an extension of whatever idiom, or their craft. They've invested, and you can see it. So I think with academia, it's become very technical, and we lose sight of, how can I say, just the human element and what makes a good artist beyond just technical things. So it's just like, oh, I can do this. Does that make you like, okay, that's cool. I can, I know how to write a paragraph correctly. Does it make me a writer? Does it make you want to read what I'm writing? Does it inspire you in a way? Is it information that's
Touch you?
Yeah, does it touch you, or is it compelling? And it's different levels of all of those things. So, and that's a piece that doesn't always get talked about. Yeah, it's like somebody, can I play a song or a blues or a pop tune? It's like, yeah, you can play it, but there are levels of being able to play it. So and if you go to a show that inspires you, what you quickly understand is like, when someone has something special, it transcends the actual technical thing of what they're doing. Like, I'm most moved when I hear someone, even like a kid, they can't really play or have technique, but they have something like in their spirit, in their sound that moves you, and you is there. And so what you want to do is you want to cultivate that aspect. You could teach somebody how to read music. You could teach somebody how to play scales. You could teach them arpeggios. They can learn songs, but you can't teach someone how to be human.
So how do you think how how we can improve. So what we can do about it. So all money in the world, you have all leverage in the government. If you can create ideal music school, what would it look like?
I get rid of all social media, all phones, damn near like filter the internet of all nonsense and BS. Then the music will come back. It will come back. We won't have this conversation. The biggest problem with music, people don't listen to it. And why don't they listen to it? Well, one, my man talked about economics. So it's about money. So if you don't pay for something in our society now, it doesn't have value. Secondly, there's so many things going on. There's a million things going on. So who has time to sit and listen to an album? I think I posted this on social media because I didn't want to, but my apprentice and some of my students, they're like, man, you got to be on social media because people don't even know you exist. So my challenge is this. If you call yourself a musician, a real musician, an artist, there should be one complete album, not like a playlist, like an album of an artist that they records. Like I have to even explain to young people, some young people, like what a record is. Like they don't even know what a record is. Like it's an album that someone produced that has at least 60 minutes of music on it. And it's curated to present an artistic statement or story. I said, if you're a musician and you're not listening to one album a week, uninterrupted, no cell phone, no messages, no texting, you're not a serious musician. Especially under the age of 21.
Because of probably the technology always go. Because if we go back to it, is it the value a little bit? Tell me if I'm wrong. Just imagine like 200 years ago, Frédéric Chopin, composer, coming to town, right? If you like not be able to go to show and watch him play, that moment, there was no recording there. Whatever you saw, there was one time in the lifetime. That's the only performance you've seen. That's it. If you missed it, you missed it. And then, like, for instance, the first vinyl came out. Everyone's buy the vinyl. Not every household has a recorder. So you got home, nothing important. You put in there, all family sits and all of them listen. Right now, like, and then it moves. Like nowadays, everyone's listening to music while they're cooking, while they drive in the car. Nobody kind of pay attention. No, like you're right. Nobody finished to listen to the album. They just sometimes not even finish to listen to the song. They just skip. So that part is kind of, I think it's because of the technology.
How about this one? The hell with the music. People can't listen to each other. People can't have a conversation. There are people right now, as we speak, in Tacoma, maybe down the street, they're sitting in the same room and they're texting each other. This is where we are with humanity. So connection, human connection is what is required for humanity's sake. I mean, yes, we're talking about music and music education or just education in general, but we're losing a part of what makes us human. That is what is happening. And it's happening faster than we can actually realize. We're all impacted. I notice myself impacted. I delete apps off of my phone because it's a way of it's like, man, why am I checking the app? How about we just live and be in the moment?
Can we talk a little bit more about, you said how about the communication with people? What's the communication between artists and the audience?
Musicians at different levels, they play the music that they play and then they present it. Now, there's different levels of musicianship, obviously, different levels of understanding about the art that you're presenting or the music that you're presenting to an audience. There's different kinds of audiences. So let's say if we just like Smashing Pumpkins or something and we just go out and do like everybody's partying and getting torn. So it's a different audience and a different atmosphere, and the engagement with the audience is just like party and wow, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you're presenting, let's say an R&B performance and you're singing love songs, like Al Green, whatever, for example, Otis Redding, Donny Hathaway, Marvin Gaye, the atmosphere is more inviting in their songs that have lyrics and they have meaning in the lyrics. And your engagement with the audience are songs that penetrate them on a human level. That's why people say oldies and all of that stuff won't go away, because the songs speak to you from all generations. They're not like, oh, this is reserved for like this is old. Like, no, it's good. That's not even engagement. You're engaging with the audience through the music you play. So whether you even communicate anything to them, the music communicates to them. You don't have to say anything. Now, when it comes to, how could I say? I use this word or moniker, the 4-letter word starts with J, jazz. People basically just get up there, they're just soloists and do whatever, and there's no engagement, and it's very difficult or dense sometimes for a person that has no exposure to the music to come into it to understand what's going on.
Do you think that jazz musician left the listeners behind, way behind? On the, like,
Not the
understanding
real, not the real ones. I mean, you listen to Charles Mingus's music, it speaks to you. He wouldn't have to explain anything. You listen to even Charlie Parker, or Dizzy Gillespie. Their music speaks to you without, they don't have to explain it. It's very accessible. That's the word, accessibility. What makes music accessible? Groove. Like, people that listen to, like hip hop or stuff that was very misogynist, kind of degrading women and like raunchy or whatever, or disrespectful. I'll hear women singing songs. What was a song some years ago? These women were singing a song and I would be looking at them and they singing it, like singing the lyrics of the song. I was like, why are you singing that? It's like so disrespectful to women. They said, well, I like the beat. So the beat transcends, disrespectful language, I guess. So if you have a strong beat, strong groove, that's something that will always hold people, like rhythm. Then lyrics probably are the next thing. Like, what is the song saying? Then after that, maybe the voice or a singer and their voice, if they have a really nice voice or unique voice that is delivering the song, then that's probably the next thing. But when you start talking about harmony and chords and or melody, those things in today's world or music listeners' world, those things are secondary. They're
So,
not
or arrangement is not.
or the
like- if
arrangement
it's
or
not-
orchestration.
If its song's not there, it doesn't matter. Like whatever arrangement
If
you
there's
put
no
in there.
beat and there's no like catchy hook, that's what's required. So with jazz, saying like what's accessible, anytime you have a very clear rhythm, clear melody or sound, cohesion, repetition, then that's generally what we would qualify as good music. Because, if Duke Ellington can say, I only know 2 kinds of music, good and the other kind. So if he could say that, that's what it is. People are afraid of saying the truth. I did a video recently on a series that's called On the Records. And the series, I decided to do the series because most critics, not all of them, but most of them, they're not real practitioners. They're writers that like the music or whatever. They've not really produced any records. They've not played any records. They've not been on tour with any bands. They're just writers that check out music and they write about it. So, and whatever their taste is whatever their taste. It's not like holistic. So I said, I want to do a show that talks about the music and it's not personal. Like some albums that I'll have a reaction to, I might know everyone on the recording. Some recordings, I don't know anyone. But it's not about knowing any people. It's about the music that's on the recording. And we're talking about it from a musical context. And I am someone that's been playing music for over 40-something years. And for a lot of those years with very serious musicians and artists. So I feel like I'm trying to give back with a perspective from a musician that I would say at this point, I know a little bit about music. And I got pushback about something that I said about a recording, and I said that it wasn't swinging. And so what is swinging? Something that has a pulse and it's groove. It's danceable. The easiest thing that you could say about what is swinging. Does it make you want to get up and dance?
Doesn't move you, right?
Well, not just move you,
Just
move
get
you
up
to
and dance.
move you to a rhythm that the repetition is infectious. Like, you something that's real funky that you go like, man, feels so good. I did a record by Sweets Edison and Ben Webster, and the rhythm section is unbelievably swinging. And so people go like, oh, they listen to music and people play the swing rhythm and they walk the bass and whatever. And we're like, yeah, we're swinging. And it's like, it's okay. And they look at me like, oh, you're just a hater. And I said, okay, I put on something that's truly unbelievably swinging. Then they go,
Oh.
oh. So you only know what you're exposed to. So I'm trying to bring that spirit of enlightenment or perspective. So I did one on someone else on the record that was not swinging, and I was attacked. I never said that the person was a bad musician or that they weren't good. That's not at all. They're excellent musicians, but the record was not swinging. And the intention of the format and the music that they were playing, the intention of it was to be swinging, and it was not swinging. I mean, shoot me. But there was a lot of pushback by people like, oh, well, you're so negative. And it was like, all I'm saying is, this is not swinging. That's it. It's not like war, but people, if you go against something that people like, or someone, or a personality, or an image, or anything that someone likes, and you say, hey, this is not, or it's negative. This wasn't even personal. This was about music. Then they get very defensive. So this is just where we are in society. Like if someone say, oh, Serj, you look better in blue. He's like, oh, he said Serj was ugly. Or blue fit you, yeah, right. He says Serj was a bad person. What?
Like, how that works, right?
Yeah, so I think that has always existed, but it's magnified because of social media. And people can get on platforms and say whatever they want and hide behind a platform and just say whatever they want without any facts.
How would you suggest to like musicians take the criticism? It's like, do you like grade that? Like, for instance, if I play bass tonight, for instance, and then the random guy who's not a musician said like, Serj, that was bad, or that was not great. I'm like, okay, he's not a musician. Why am I even listening? But if Amar would told me, Avital, for instance, he said, yeah, you should work on this, on that, on that. It wasn't great because of that. I was like, I would not be offensive. I was like, oh, I can learn that, or I can learn something from. So how would you suggest to people do you need to look at the level of musician to like even pay attention to the criticism, or?
Someone that doesn't play at all could be 100% correct and say that, hey, this not happening or swinging because they've made an investment of listening to so much stuff. They might not be able to give you a technical correction.
Like exactly explain how it is,
yes.
Right?
But they can't, because I grew up in a time where there were listeners of the music that knew all of the great musicians and went to those concerts. They weren't musicians, but they listened to great musicians and they knew the music. I think that's a big part of why the music is not, how can I say, the presentation of the art form of all just acoustic music is not on a high level because the listeners have changed. The listeners don't demand high quality. It's like if you bought a car and it doesn't start. And like, so everybody's making cars that don't start and it just becomes the norm. And then the level goes down and you're just used to a car not starting. So then people
You just sit by the driveway, like right there.
Yeah.
I have a car.
Yeah, right. So it's this kind of thing. When the level goes down and there's no demand for it to be good, then no, it just won't be good. But that question is very great because someone could actually say, hey, this is not grooving, it's not funky. Have you heard Ohio Players? Or have you heard, James Brown? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Have you heard, Average White Band?
Yep.
Have you heard that? Like, that's funky. I mean, they might not be able to tell you,
Exactly, technical part, what you did wrong.
but they
Ghost
can,
notes or anything,
right,
like
yeah.
whatever they're gonna say.
Exactly. Now, as the musician, it can help you a little bit. It's like breadcrumbs, but you still have to figure out what it is that you have to improve. That's also adds to another question. Do musicians want to be challenged to actually really get better? Or do they just want to be told what they want to hear? Like, oh, you sound great, man. Great job. No one wants criticism. And I will tell you this, if you want to be great, you're going to take a lot of criticism. Because that's the path of being excellent. And then the level of the criticism goes up. It raises. So like maybe it's the guy in your town, like, hey man, you need to work on your chord chain. Like, you need to learn these songs. You don't know any songs. So you start learning songs. The next level, you get a tour with a touring band. The next thing is just like, hey man, I don't like the voice leading of the songs. Like, songs, but hey man, I need more 5-to-1 resolutions, or when you walk your bass lines, they need to be more arpeggiated. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it leads from the opposite. How do you think how often you should criticize other musician?
How often should I?
Because we mentioned about taking criticism, but if we will take from someone, so someone's criticize us. So when is appropriate to criticize someone? When it's not?
It's that, I want to say,
It's like fine line.
I don't like the word criticize. I think feedback.
Feedback. It's not
Or
sounds as-
perspective. Because criticism, people take it in a negative way. And I'm very critical of myself. So whatever you could tell me, I might say 10 times worse for myself of what I could improve. But you don't want to beat yourself up. You want to take it and try to improve. So how often, the question is, how often should you give feedback to a musician? Well, it depends. If you work with the musician every day, then probably not so often. But certain big things you have to say, hey, the time is rushing. It's not, the time keeps moving up. So you have to address it and then hopefully fix that problem.
Yeah, and nobody will take it as like a personal ego. It's like, no, it's just we serve the song. If it's not like, if someone rushing, like, okay, let's fix it and move on.
That is the normal way. But some people don't want to change, or then they feel like you're attacking them. And then so it becomes this whole other thing. That makes it more complicated. But then that means the person doesn't want to accept anything to actually really improve. So for all of us, no one is perfect. We're all human. So no one is perfect, but it's the effort and the work that you're willing to do to improve aspects of your musicianship or your artistry. So for younger musicians, normally it's technical. But when you get older musicians, it's more sensitive. So it's easier for me to give feedback to a musician that has less experience. It's more difficult to give feedback to a musician that has. I have peers. Sometimes I have to give feedback. But generally, if they're on a very high level, they make the adjustments themselves.
If they like catch it.
Because as you move up, there's always little things that you're always trying to improve and work on. So it's not like you ever get there. It's like, you're always working towards something.
Yeah,
like,
it's
how
like
can I get
take
better?
a lifetime to master it though.
Yes.
So you've been playing music with a lot of different musicians, with a lot of different times and a lot of different cultures. So what is like to work and what is the similarity or what is the difference to work with the different genres like jazz, like Wynton Marsalis, or work in something with like a funk bands, or if you have some project to do the hip hop. So what's the similarity? What is the difference? What's your view on it?
Everyone works in a different way. So music language, there's a musical language in general. However, if you're working with a hip hop artist, let's say it's about groove, energy, like energy, feel. And it's more in a primitive, like not in a negative sense, primitive, but basic foundational things: energy, groove, weight, sometimes volume. Like energy, you might equate it with like power or volume. And then it's more static in that context or genre. You just playing a groove.
Yeah, of course, and depend on the artist, right? Even
Exactly.
the same genre, it's going to be case to case.
Exactly. If you're playing classical music, generally it's all written, so there's not, your creativity is based around what is actually on the page and the interpretation of which the conductor or the leader in the ensemble wants, or how they want the music. A groove band, like say R&B. I did some work with Mary J. Blige. I mean, quite a few people. George Benson.
Yeah, your list is huge. You play with like millions of people.
Well, in those settings, it's more about the feel of the music. I remember, speaking of that, there was a spiritual song on a record I did with the great Bobby McFerrin. Gil Goldstein was the producer, and it was something very simple about where I was feeling the pocket, because it can be the minutia. So if you had a metronome and a click where the beep is, you might want to feel it right exactly in the center of the beep, or sometimes it might be a little bit behind because you want to feel, but the bass drum might be exactly with the click and the snare might be a little bit behind, just to give it a different kind of feel. And this is the minutia of like working with someone like Gil Goldstein, who's brilliant. He's genius. So like all of those things. And at the end of the day, maybe it felt a little bit ahead, but now everyone does this with a computer, but like humans do this. You listen to Stevie Wonder, Superstition. Like when they put that together, Ray Parker Jr. was playing rhythm guitar on that particular project, and he talks a little bit about like where he fit in the pocket, and that's how he really became famous, of like his feel. And that's something, or James Brown, like feeling. So these are all aspects. Now, you start talking to someone like Wynton Marsalis, you have to know a lot of music. So there's lots of styles. Like he uses the entire canon of jazz when he might write a piece. So the piece could be just a simple song like quartet, or it could be be for symphony orchestra. And all of those things could be in it. So it's like a hybrid of like a classical piece where it's all written, but then it's also written in the style of you, where you have to bring an element of your own perspective. And he's very open. So it's like a give and take. Some things are very specific. Some things are at liberty for you to figure out what to do. So there you have it. Lots of different perspectives.
You grew up in a music family, and your kids also play music. A lot of musicians who like on a higher level, they really, really strict to their kids. They just like, they just want to way more from the kids. So do you have any advices how to educate your own child?
I'm the complete opposite. I have no expectations for them playing music, and I didn't push my sons. My older son is actually in the studio with us today. I didn't push music on them, or didn't say, you have to do this. And
like 8 hours a
no,
day.
you have to practice whatever it is that you want to do. I know it's like whatever it is, but you don't have to be a musician. You don't have to be. You
So
can
just
do
find
whatever.
your own path.
Yes, and ironically, both of my sons are musically inclined. My older son plays guitar, piano, drums. Very talented, and he does it because he enjoys it, and he was exposed to a lot of music. Now, I will say this. I believe you should expose your kids to the music or the quality of music that you respect as an artist or musician, or as a parent. You should expose them to the highest quality of music and let them decide.
Because you've been exposed in your family, right? Your dad play, and you start gigging already when you were like a kid.
Yeah, but it was different for me, different time. I actually like to practice. Like it was like a safe place for me. Like I love to practice and work on things and figure stuff out.
Still do?
Still. Maybe not just playing the drums, but like with music or composition and orchestration and composing and the process of rehearsing ensembles or conducting. I enjoy that. I enjoy making people better or giving them feedback to improve what they're doing, especially if they're open to it. I like that. But for your kids, it's such a personal thing. I don't want to put pressure on them. They already have pressure. Like if somebody's father is a big banker or, you know, a business person, it's pressure on the kid to be like, okay, now you got to be a big time business
Or bigger. You have
or
to
big,
be,
yeah. Or you're going to be compared. It's like, no, just let them encourage them in whatever it is that they want to do and just be supportive. But I wouldn't push music on your kid. It's not, because at the end of the day, many parents have asked me over the years, it's like, hey, what should I do for my kid? I've got this teacher for him, and the parents will be way more into it than the kid. I was like, at the end of the day, the kid has to practice. If they don't practice, it doesn't matter. It's just,
it will not work, right?
Right. I have my younger son is a professional footballer, and he practiced. He loved playing football.
So nobody needs to tell him, hey, you have to go practice for 2 hours.
But no, but he also saw me go practice or work on music for hours and hours and hours and hours. So I think in a certain way, he did see an example of like, hey, I work hard at what I do. I love what I do, and I work hard at it, and it translates to whatever you do. It doesn't, you invest the time, and it pays you back just with joy. With joy. Like, so that's it. It's not, do you have joy in what it is you do? That's
awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
And like last two, like kind of short questions. If you have a chance to take a lesson from anyone from the whole history, like any musician, any person, who would you choose and why?
Maybe Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn.
Why? I mean, Duke Ellington is just, but maybe you have your own answer.
I was Duke Ellington for how to be a band leader or leadership, and Billy Strayhorn on arranging.
And the last one, it's maybe going to be a little like more philosophical, maybe even sounds a little stupid, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Why do you play music?
Love. I play music for love on many levels. Love of humanity, of just being here and the grace to be able to play music, to share love to other people, to heal. Love for the collective and the brotherhood and sisterhood or fellowship on the bandstand, to create something together to share. And the love to leave something for the next people and to continue.
Thank you so much to find time and stop by and have you here. And that was a pleasure to play with you tonight. Thank you so much.
Man, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Song Story Short. If you like what you saw, hit the like button and subscribe. We would also like to give a quick thank you to our sponsors, Decade Sound Studio and NRW Media.
And if you would like to support what we're doing, please subscribe to our Patreon account. Link is going to be down below. You can find early access to the video, podcast, multi-track recording, and all the good stuff. Thanks again for watching. See you next time.
Your touch